Are you interested in selling your business someday? What's up, blue collar business owner? Welcome back to the Blue Collar Prosperity Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Maskill, where I focus on helping guide you to have a business that produces consistent, positive cash flow. In doing so, you'll have clarity and confidence that your business is headed in the right direction. Today is a solo show. It is the first Monday of the month, and the first Monday of every month is a solo show with me discussing a topic that is relevant to you. So, what we are going to dive into today is an exciting update and then a deeper discussion into selling your business. So that exciting update is, you may have seen it online if we're connected online, or you follow me online, but I've officially partnered with a M&A firm called Brentwood Growth. Brentwood Growth focuses on helping companies in the trades sell their business. So they are like a broker. They are a sell-side advisor. And the only companies they work with are companies in the trades, just like me. So that's where we saw a lot of synergies over the last 36 months as we started working together and decided to make it official. And why it works so well is they get plenty of companies that come to them, which is going to be part of the topic today. Plenty of companies that come to them, owners want to sell, and then they have to deliver the bad news to the owner that your company is not ready to sell, or it's not worth what the owner thought it was worth based on what it would go for in the market. So many of those companies need help to make their business more financially healthy, which is where we come in, blue collar business advisors. You might see it online, also known as Brentwood Value Creator. So our job is to create value for these companies so that eventually they do want to sell. So our services, nothing changes with our services. We are still offering outsourced fractional CFO services, helping guide companies in the trades to create that consistent positive cash flow, achieve their financial goals, have a financially healthy business so we can all sleep better at night. And in doing so, if you ever do want to sell your business, it is worth a lot more and it will sell quickly. So that is the exciting update with Brentwood Growth, Brentwood Value Creator. Super excited about it. They have a great team over there helping business owners just like you every single day sell their business. So let's dive into the discussion around selling your business. And what I realized for the longest time, as I have owned many different businesses here in the local area and scaled and sold 4 different ones, for the longest time, I was the fractional CFO for my companies and never really knew it. I was just guiding the business by using the numbers. And based on all the personality tests that I have taken over the years, it makes sense. I remove all the emotion and use numbers to make decisions, and the numbers never lie. That's the great thing about numbers. It's also the bad thing about numbers because sometimes they hurt our feelings, but they never do lie. So if we can use the numbers without our emotion and ego and just use them to guide our business, it will get us to where we want to go if we know what that looks like. What does success look like? And what it's also going to do, it's going to show us what do we need to work on next to get the biggest return on our time. The numbers will tell us that based on what's the biggest issue. We know then what systems and processes do we need to put in place. So like I said, I've spent the last 14 years as a small business owner scaling and selling 4 different companies, most recently in the electrical field. Before that, I used to work in the finance world, lived in Chicago and worked in the finance world, which is how I am able to do what I do now, which is awesome, using my finance background, experience in the trades, experience owning businesses to help more companies in the trade. So let's dive into that. Let's dive into selling our business. Most people listening to this want to sell their business someday. It could be next year, it could be in a decade, it could be tomorrow, but most people that I talk to on a daily basis want to sell their business. The number one thing I have learned in working alongside Brentwood Growth so far is most businesses aren't sellable in their current state. This includes many, many businesses doing many millions of dollars in revenue. So you might be thinking, well, they're not sellable because they're only doing 500,000 in revenue. They're only doing $1 million in revenue. But there are businesses doing 5, 10, 15 million in revenue that are not sellable. So we're going to get into that today. And what are the reasons for that? And how do we fix that? Just there's so many moving parts into selling a business. And when what we really need to understand is the buyer is usually not using any emotion in making that decision. They're strictly using the facts and numbers. So we need to get our facts and numbers straight. Unfortunately, many businesses are not worth as much as the owner thinks it is either. It's just that's what the market will bear. Just like anything else, Your business is worth what somebody is willing to pay for it. Even though you've put in all the hard work, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the sleepless nights, overdrawn the bank account, all the things that go in with starting, scaling, and owning a business, some of those things don't translate into selling for more dollars. So what do we need to do to build a sellable business? My number one recommendation, if you are watching this video, there's a book back here called Built to Sell by John Warlow. Definitely recommend you guys check that book out. The whole premise behind it is we should always be building our business to sell, even if we don't want to sell it. The reason for that is when your business is sellable, even if you don't want to sell it, it's going to give you the freedom that you're looking for. When a business is sellable, it doesn't need you to operate on a daily basis. You have managers in place, you have leadership in place, and your business can run without you. That gives us the freedom that most of us are looking for. My overall thesis of owning a business is we should be building a business that will allow us and empower us to live the life that we really want, live the life of our dreams. What does that look like? And what type of business do we need to build in order to make that happen? So when you build your business to sell, it's going to give you the freedom, it's going to give you the flexibility, and it's going to give you options. Meaning, I don't have to sell this, but if something did come up and I was forced to sell it, I have the option to do that, and it's already ready to sell. And that's really, working when I work with all of our clients and all of our CFOs work with all of our clients. When we can build a financially healthy business, it just runs that much more smoothly. It's worth a lot more. The value that we're creating is significant because all that money that goes to the bottom line that we're building then is worth a lot more in the marketplace, depending on the valuation of your company, the size of your business. But when you have those options, you don't have to sell, but if you had to sell, it is sellable and you will get maximum return. When we're in a position that we need to sell and it's not sellable, that's never a good position to be in. It's kind of the similar analogy of people say, go get that line of credit or go get that loan when you don't need it, because when you do need it, you might not be able to get it. So doing the same thing with our business. If we're in a position where we have to sell it and our business isn't sellable, we're going to sell it for pennies on the dollar, versus if we start to put in the work now, when we are ready to take it to the market, we can maximize the value of all the work that you have put in. And another exciting thing with the book Built to Sell, they've also created a thing called the Value Builder System. The Value Builder System is a framework. It's a software that will tell you how sellable your business is. So working with Brentwood Growth, ironically, we're also going to be using that. So we can track that for all the clients that we're working with, and we can see how close are we getting where we can take this thing to market. So what are we going to focus on today? That's what I want to dive into today, is what do we actually need to focus on today? Because if we go online or if we go to the supply house or we talk to our friends, they're going to tell us 1,000 different things. However, we're going to talk about the facts today of what do we need to focus on. Top 2 things. First, our business has to be financially healthy. Your business has to be able to produce consistent positive cash flow. It has to have a solid net profit. My target is a 20% net profit for 95% of the companies in the trades if you're not stuck in the construction space. If you're doing a lot of new construction and a lot of work for GCs, that's a little bit different. But that business also isn't sellable, and we'll get into that in a minute. So we got to get our business financially healthy. That's number 1. Number 2 is we need to make sure our business doesn't need us, the owner, to survive. Why? Because nobody wants to buy a job. Nobody wants to buy a business that needs you to be there, because then that defeats the purpose of buying a business. They want to make sure that you have a team in place that will be able to deliver everything on a daily basis, and the owner doesn't have to intervene, because most people buying businesses, they don't want to go be a technician. They want to go be an owner. They want to own the company. They want to guide the company. They want to be the visionary of the company. They don't want to be doing all the work though. So make sure your business doesn't need you to survive. Caveat to that, from a financial standpoint, there's a certain revenue amount where you aren't able to do that. So if you're only doing a couple $1 million in revenue, you are still an integral part of that business. Now, when you get to the $2 to $3 to $4 million mark, maybe then you're operating as the general manager. At that point, that business is fairly sellable. But when we can get it above that, where then there's a GM in place, when there's leadership reporting to them, that builds enough layers in between the owner and actually having to step in on a day-to-day basis that people are willing to pay a much higher multiple for that business. So those are those are the top 2 things. Get your business financially healthy with a 20% net profit, and then make sure your business doesn't need you to survive on a daily basis. What are some other things that we look at when we are looking to sell a business, or what are some things that buyers are looking at? So make sure, and I alluded to this in number one, make sure your business isn't dependent on the construction industry. So if you're doing work for general contractors and you're just the sub for most of your work, that is not good. That is not sellable for a couple of reasons. One, it's built on relationships. A lot of times when buyers buy a business that is heavy in the construction side, the minute that happens, all those general contractors say, I'm going to go reprice all this thing now that the old owner isn't here. People don't want to mess with that risk. They also want to mess with the risk of the economy. If the economy goes down and you're heavily focused on construction, you're guaranteed to have a slowdown. So they don't want to deal with that. They want predictability. They want consistency. They want to know, what are we going to do every month, regardless what the economy is doing, regardless if we have a great relationship with a general contractor. So that's number three. Kind of tying into that, if you aren't doing construction, you probably don't have to worry about this, but make sure your customer concentration isn't an issue. If you're a service business and you're only serving a couple of customers, people don't want to buy that either, because one customer leaves and all of a sudden your business drops by double digits. So make sure your customer concentration isn't an issue. Next one, number 5, is cash flow and accounts receivable. So just because you are showing profitability on your P&L, we also need to know, are we creating actual cash flow, or is this thing always a stress? We're always drawing on our line of credit. Where is this business at? So if you are doing work for other people and not getting paid right away, say your accounts receivable is really high, that is a red flag that this business isn't managed properly. It's also then when that person buys that business, they're probably thinking, we're going to have to put a lot of money in the bank to navigate this receivables issue, because if it's taking us 30, 60, 90 days to get paid, we're going to have that much cash in the bank until we start getting paid. So that's number 5. Number 6 is recurring revenue. Now, I know this isn't completely possible with every person that's listening to this call, but if there's a way you can create recurring revenue, your business is much more valuable. So if you're in plumbing, electrical, heating and air, you can have that membership. It makes those customers stickier. It makes them spend more money with you. It keeps them around longer, increasing the customer lifetime value. It also adds to predictability of revenue. So any industry where you can have recurring revenue, that is a good thing. Number 7, another financial thing, you need to have a clean set of books. Your books, anybody that's looking to buy your business should be able to look at your P&L, look at your balance sheet, and know this business knows what they're doing. If not, that's a big red flag. And the way most people work, they have the mentality of how you do anything is how you do everything. So if your books are a mess, it probably means your entire business is a mess. And to be honest, when we bring on new clients as a fractional CFO, usually the first couple of months we are spent working with them, getting their books cleaned up. So that way we have better data. Better data means better decisions. And before we start making really big decisions, we need to make sure the numbers are correct. So make sure you are spending the proper amount of money with an expert bookkeeper in order to have a good, clean set of books. So that's number 7. Couple more. Number 8, what is the future potential of your business? If you're in a really small town and you feel like you've kind of maxed out, you could still sell that business. It's just not going to be worth a multiple. Whereas if there's still a bigger potential in your area. So just keep that in mind as you grow, run your business, what the multiples look like for your business. The bigger the metropolitan area you're in, the bigger the multiple, because there's just going to be more buyers, more opportunity. And usually that means people are also moving into that area. So the future customer base continues to build. Number 9, again, kind of going back to the financials for, I don't know, the 4th or 5th time, because that's when people start, when any buyer starts evaluating the business, first thing they look at is all the numbers, all the books. They're not going to go in and just start talking to people and get a feel for the culture. If the books don't match, if the books don't line up with what they're looking for, they don't go any further than that. So you need to have no questionable historical financials. What do I mean by that? Your business, we can't have the crazy lumpy payroll of like, oh, we had one good month last year and that's why we increased our revenue by 50%. Well, what if that month doesn't happen this year? A lot of times we see that in the roofing space or in restoration, that type of work, when there might have been a big storm that came through, went out and did a whole bunch of work, and then the next month we dropped off and kind of leveled out. So any like big gaps in your financials, any big peaks and valleys in your financials, not saying it's not sellable, you probably just won't be able to really recognize all of that if it's on the upside, just because the buyer is going to kind of smooth that out and assume, well, we're not going to have a big storm every July or something like that. And last but not least, number 10, this is not to be forgotten. We need to have a strong brand in our area, which means we need to have a lot of Google reviews, a lot of good Google reviews. People need to know your company in your area, and they don't know you as the owner. When they can really recognize this is the company that I hire to do all the plumbing in my house, or this is the company that I hire to do all the heating and air in my house, whatever it might be. If it's not tied to the individual and it's tied to the brand, the company, the Google reviews, the vans all match, all that kind of stuff, definitely will help increase the value of the business and make it more sellable. If you guys need help with any of that branding, I don't remember what episode it was, but I had Dan Antonelli on the podcast previously. He is the founder of KickCharge, and that's all they do is branding for companies in the trade. So that are the 10 things to focus on. How do we determine what we need to focus on? First, focus on the top two. Let's get our business financially healthy, getting it to that 20% net profit, and make sure business doesn't need you to survive. Caveat to that, you can't do both if you're too small. You can't hit 20% net profit and hire your way out of a job if you're only doing a couple $1,000,000. So that will take time, but if we map it out properly, we can eventually get you out of that job and becoming the owner. Other things, make sure your business isn't dependent on the construction industry. Another addition to that I don't think we covered before is if the buyer is going to be using financing, SBA financing to buy your business. If more than 30% of your revenue comes from the construction world, SBA usually won't lend on it just because they want more predictability to know that the new buyer is going to be able to pay the note based on the historical data of the company. So that's number 3. Number 4, make sure your customer concentration isn't an issue. Number 5, cash flow and accounts receivable. Make sure that's not an issue. Having recurring revenue like a membership base or a service that you provide on a regular basis, whether it's pest control, lawn maintenance, something like that. Number 7, clean books. Number 8, future growth potential in your area. Number 9, no questionable historical financials like a big storm that came through last year that significantly increased revenue for a month or two. And then last, but definitely not least, number 10, have a strong brand. Now you'll notice common thing among a lot of those, I'd say probably at least 5 or 6 of them all have to do with financials. So make sure your financial house is in order before doing anything else, because if your financial house is in order, then you're probably not going to be in business very long anyway. So the other things are irrelevant. That's all we got for today, guys. Get started today. That's what I want to encourage you. If you're not at 20% net profit, start focusing on that. There are previous episodes in here that we talk about what all our key margins need to be. If you need help with any of that, go to thebluecollaradvisors.com. If you go there, you'll have several options. One of them, you can book a call with me. We will do an evaluation of your business. No cost to you. Dive into your business, what's working, what's not working. And along with that, there is a downloadable guide to help you figure out, am I priced properly? To me, that's one of the biggest issues I see with companies in the trades. And not only is it the biggest issue I see, but that's when the money first comes into your business. So if it's not coming in properly, then everything else downstream from that is going to suffer as well. So thebluecollaradvisors.com, go there. Again, just get started. The first step is to know exactly what you want. What is your definition of success? Going back to what we talked about at the beginning, what type of business do you need to build in order to live the life of your dreams? Figure that out, put numbers to it. Once you have those numbers that are put to it, it makes the destination measurable, which allows us to actually know if we're on track or off track. And when we're off track, figure out what's getting in the way. And lastly, just take action, get 1% better every single day, and you'll be like 37 times better by the end of the year. That's all I got, guys. Talk to you soon.